everyone, this is Marika and welcome back to another session of Community Health Nursing with me. In our previous session, we have discussed a very interesting topic which is immunity and innate immunity. In this session today, we are going to discuss the remaining aspect of immunity which includes the acquired immunity and the immunizing agents. So in our previous session, we have seen what is immunity and what is innate immunity, what are the different cells that are involved in innate immunity, and what kind of protection do we get from all those different types of cells that are present in our body. Let us quickly recall what is immunity, what is innate immunity, and then move on to today's topic. So the term immunity is used to describe the body's ability to fight against or to defend itself against any kind of pathogenic microorganism. When our body is able to resist the pathogenic microorganisms that are entering inside our body, the resistance is known as immunity. Immunity is the ability of our body to fight against any kind of microorganism. We've seen that there are two different types of immunity, in which the first type was innate immunity. Now, as the term suggests, the innate immunity is the type of immunity that is present in an individual from the time of birth itself. Innate immunity is a long-lasting and a natural form of immunity in which our body itself produces the antibodies. Now, in innate immunity, there are different cells that are involved, which includes the macrophages, the phagocytes, dendritic cells, mast cells, neutrophils, eosinophils, and natural killer cells. Now, let us begin with today's session. Let us see what is acquired immunity. Again, from the term itself, we get an idea what is acquired immunity. As the term suggests, acquired, something that is acquired by an individual after the time of birth. Acquired immunity is also called as adaptive immunity because acquired immunity is the type of immunity that is acquired by an individual, that is acquired by a human body after the birth of an individual over a period of time. So, an acquired immunity is a type of immunity, is the ability of the body to fight against any pathogenic organism, but this immunity is not present right from the birth of an individual. It is acquired by an individual over a period of time. The acquired immunity, as I said, is also called as adaptive immunity, and it is the immunity that is developed by our body. It is the ability of the immune system of an individual's body to adapt itself and to generate pathogen-specific immunity. So, an acquired immunity is the type of immunity in which our body, our immune system, tries to adapt to the disease and also starts to produce pathogen-specific immunity. So, according to the pathogen that has invaded our body, according to the pathogen that has entered inside our body, acquired immunity starts to develop. Acquired immunity is specific and it is mediated by antibodies or lymphocytes. I hope you've understood what is acquired immunity. Acquired immunity is an immunity that is developed in an individual over a period of time after the birth. It is also called as adaptive immunity, and it is specific and it is mainly mediated and regulated by lymphocytes or antibodies. Now, there are different types of acquired immunities. What are those? Active immunity involves the direct response to the antigen in the body. Now, if any kind of antigen is found in the body, in active immunity, in active acquired immunity, there will be direct response to the antigen that is found within the body. Active immunity results when there is exposure to pathogenic microorganisms. So as we know that the agent will enter inside the human host body, right? When there's exposure of any kind of antigen or any kind of pathogenic microorganisms with our body, this exposure triggers our immune system. So the exposure of the pathogenic microorganism or the antigen to our body triggers our immune system, and therefore our immune system starts to produce antibodies against that particular disease. Active immunity can be acquired naturally, or it can also be vaccine-induced active acquired immunity. Either ways, if an immune person comes in contact with the pathogenic organism in the future, there will be immediate response of the immune system, and our immune system will start producing the antibodies towards that particular disease. So whether it is acquired naturally or whether it is vaccine-induced immunity, both works in the same way. In future, if the immune person comes in contact with the pathogenic microorganism, the immune system will recognize the bacteria, the virus, or any other pathogen immediately and start to produce antibodies against that particular disease. Active immunity is long-lasting immunity, and sometimes it can also be a lifelong immunity. The second type of acquired immunity is passive immunity. Now, acquired immunity, as we know, acquired immunity is acquired over a period of time, but the person's own body is producing the antibodies that is required to fight against the disease. But in passive immunity, the immunity is not produced in our own body. The antibodies are not produced in our body, but the person is given antibodies from the outside. The person's body, the person's immune system is not involved in producing the antibodies that is required to fight against any disease. Now, unlike active immunity, passive immunity is not produced within the person's body, but it is given from the outside. The antibodies that are required to fight against the disease is given to the person, and it is not produced by the response of the person's immune system. Our body in passive immunity does not produce any immunity, does not produce any kind of antibodies that are required for our body to fight against disease. Those antibodies that are required are given to the person in order to fight against the disease. A newborn baby acquires passive immunity from its mother through the placenta. I hope you've understood the difference between the active immunity and passive immunity. Now, there is one major advantage of passive immunity. The major advantage is that the passive immunity is immediate. So the protection that is provided by the passive immunity is immediate. Whereas active immunity, as it develops inside our body, as it is a biological process, it takes time to develop, usually several weeks. We have active immunity and passive immunity. Active immunity is long-lasting. It is produced in our body over a period of time. Whereas passive immunity is giving the antibodies from the outside. The person's immune system, the person's body or the person's immune system is not involved in producing the antibodies that are required. But the protection that we get from the passive immunity is immediate, whereas active immunity takes time in order to develop, usually several weeks. However, passive immunity does not last for a longer period of time because our body is not producing the antibodies. Because in passive immunity, our body, our immune system is not producing. It is given from the outside. The antibodies are taken from the outside. Therefore, it is not a long-lasting immunity, but the active immunity is a long-lasting immunity, and it is also sometimes a lifelong immunity. Now, let us see what are the cells involved in acquired immunity. There are majorly two cells that are involved in acquired immunity, which is B cells and T cells. First, let us learn about B cells. As I said, in acquired immunity, two different cells are involved, which is B cell and T cell. B cells are the cells that are developed in the bone marrow of an individual, and they get activated on their encounter with antigen or pathogenic microorganisms. Now, when pathogenic microorganisms comes in contact with the B cells get activated. After the activation, the B cells will immediately start to release antibodies against the identified antigen. So the antibodies that are produced from the B cells starts acting upon the antigen that has been found inside the body. This antibodies that is produced by the B cells go and attach to the surface of the antigen and slowly destroys the found antigen. I hope you've understood the functioning of B cells. B cells are one of the major cells that are involved in acquired immunity. They are developed in bone marrow, and B cells are activated when they encounter with foreign agent. Now, as the foreign antigen or as the pathogenic organism enters our body, the B cell becomes activated. What do they do once they are activated? Once they are activated, they start to release antibodies. Once they release the antibodies, all the antibodies that are released by the B cell starts attaching to the surface of the antigen and slowly destroys the antigen. The antibodies that are produced by the B cells can detect any kind of antigen that is found in the body. So the immunity that is dependent on the B cell is called as humoral immunity. I hope you've understood how B cell provides protection against the disease-causing microorganism. The second one that we have is T cells. The T cells also originate in the bone marrow like the B cells, but the development of the T cells takes place in the thymus. The T cells differentiate their roles into helper cells, cytotoxic cells, and regulatory cells. So when a foreign body comes inside the body, or when our body is exposed to any kind of antigen, the helper T cell starts to release cytokinase. The cytokinase acts as a messenger and gives a message, gives a signal to B cells to produce antibodies that are required for the specific antigen. The cytotoxic T cells helps to kill the cancerous cells or infected cells. The regulatory T cells helps to regulate the immune system, and the helper cells will help the B cells to produce the antibodies that is required in order to fight against the disease condition. I'll repeat about the T cells one more time. The T cells are originated in the bone marrow, but they develop in the thymus. The T cell has different functions and they differentiate into helper cells, regulatory cells, and cytotoxic or killer cells. Now, when our body is exposed to any kind of antigen, the helper T cells will release cytokinase, which will provide a message, or which will give a message to the B cells for the production of antibodies that are required. The killer cell or the cytotoxic T cells helps to kill the cancerous cell, and the regulatory T cells will help to regulate the immune system. So to summarize, today we have discussed a very short topic, which is acquired immunity, under which we've seen what is acquired immunity, what are the different types of acquired immunity, and what are the cells that are involved in providing acquired immunity to our body. I hope the class was helpful, and I'll see you all in the next session where we will discuss about immunizing agents. Thank you and have a great day ahead.